I first came here in 1965 for a 2-week, I guess, Christmas vacation. Had a marvelous time. In the course of it, met a fellow named Bil Dunaway. And Bil Dunaway at the time was the editor and publisher of the Aspen Times, unique individual. Should I talk a little bit about Bil here? Because he's been so intimately involved with everything in Aspen. And Bil, as everybody knows the story, came here to race in the Roach Cup in 1954 and broke a leg and ended up sitting at the Jerome Bar. And the guy next to him had a couple too many. And turned out he owned the Aspen Times, the guy next to him, and turned to Bil and said, for $400, I'd sell the Aspen Times. And Bil bought it right there. And that meant that Bil didn't go on the racing circuit, didn't go back up and ski Mont Blanc. He was one of the first people to ski Mont Blanc. He was an automobile racing driver, ski racer, and a technical mountain climber, climbed everywhere. Very unique, very creative individual. Anyhow, Bil, some years later, he and I did become friends. He introduced me to the mountains because we didn't have any mountains in Brooklyn where I was brought up. I think our highest elevation was about 100 feet in Prospect Park, something like that. You could sled down that, and then you have to draw the sled back up. But Bil, when I started spending summer times here as well as winter times, Bil told me I had to learn more about the mountains in the summertime, and I should go walking with him Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings. I forget which it was, but it turned out that he was walking up with physicists. And it also turned out that apparently the sport of occasion for the physicists was mountain climbing, walking up mountains, anything to do with unassailable heights that they could assail. It was a unique opportunity, and in the course of it, I did meet, obviously, Heinz, Jeremy Bernstein. Everybody was called by their last names, if I remember correctly. And there was a fellow who had a line on some rocks that people would climb, and that line that he could get his fingers in was named from Mickey Cohen or something. Cohen. Yes, I think that was it. And then there was, anyhow, with Jeremy, of course, Jeremy was completely equipped when he walked up the mountain. He had all kinds of marvelous walking shoes, walking pants, and he was marvelously attired. And he had a 90-centimeter ice axe with him all the time during the summer or any time he walked up. And he said, Marty, you have to get one of these. I said, why? And he explained to me that when you walked up, every so often, you would need some assistance, not with ice, but just like a cane or something. He said, just put it on the back of your pack, and then when you need it, you'll have it. So I got a 90-centimeter ice axe, which was very nice. Next February, I gave it to my then wife for a Valentine's Day present, which was a little unusual, but I thought Jeremy would have appreciated that. If you walked up with Jeremy, you came down talking like the New Yorker magazine. It was the most incredible thing. He renovated you in the course of those walks and changed the way you talked. The Heinz, on the other hand, was a guy. I would come out trying to emulate Jeremy, and I'd be wearing everything I could, carrying everything I could in a backpack, carrying my 90-centimeter axe, and it was very, very interesting because Heinz would come out, instead of hiking shoes, hiking boots, for mountain climbing boots, he'd be wearing a pair of tennis sneakers. Instead of Levi's with some shells to carry in your pack and sweaters and everything else you could put into your pack, Heinz would come out with just a T-shirt or a polo shirt, and that was about it. And he somehow managed to carry in his pocket a sandwich, and I think in the other pocket he probably carried a bottle of water or something like that. But that was it, and Heinz would go along, and I'd be struggling, pulling myself up on things where you had to scramble, and he'd be walking up, his hands behind his back, just talking away very calmly. It was a unique opportunity. This was where I first engaged with the physicists in Aspen. And Heinz, once upon a time, we went up to the left of Cathedral Lake. Ordinarily, we wouldn't go up on a path, but we were going beyond Cathedral Lake, and I guess heading for Cathedral Peak. I really didn't know, but I could not have made it to Cathedral Peak, I guarantee you. But we're going along the most incredible alpine meadow after we'd passed Cathedral Lake going up, and it was just gorgeous. And then we're going along a ridge line, and all of a sudden, over Cathedral Peak comes a storm, and it's coming very fast, and there's lots of lightning and thunder. And so Dunaway says, we better run down. And so we run that back down through the meadow and on down, and the word was, you've got to lose altitude. And so that was very important for some reason. And at the time, I guess I understood, I wasn't sure. But Bill, we got around Cathedral Lake, and by now the lightning was all around us. The flashes were coming, boom, ba-boom, ba-boom, and all around us. And Bill says, everybody lie down, get rid of all your metal. We lay down, get rid of all of our metal. And Heinz kind of sat down next to us, and we're still schmoozing because nobody really knew any better. I knew better. I knew to kind of put my head down like this. And I was not comfortable there, but they were all very comfortable. And then Heinz gets up in the middle of the lightning all around him and says, guys, I'm sorry, I have to leave. I have an appointment. And he walks down the mountain with his arms behind his back, just, looking at, these bolts of lightning coming down around him. It was just a pleasure to see how calm he was. I was never able to emulate that. But Bil Dunaway was the one who introduced me to the physicists. Later on, he introduced me to the Tuesday afternoon, I think it was Tuesday or Thursday afternoon rides up to Pine Creek Cookhouse for lunch. And that was always very interesting because no matter who came up to lunch, and there was always a group there, invariably there was some subject that they could debate with extreme disagreement. And it was such a pleasure to be there. And even if you didn't know what they were talking about, it was just a lot of fun. They were marvelous, marvelous people. I felt very, very comfortable with them. They made me feel very welcome. And that was how I first got involved with the physicists later. Of course, later on with David. David became a very, very dear friend. And with Heinz and David, they were just two of the great tragedies, I guess, of the Aspen Center for Physics. I don't remember my original introduction to David. It may have been in the course of a cocktail party or something, but somewhere we got engaged in some conversation, and after that, you know how it is, you come to the physics and there are about a dozen people that you recognize and you can remember names. I have a terrible time with names. And then a bunch of other people that smile at you and say hello, and darn, I can't remember their name. David was one of those people that I could remember his name, and it was always a pleasure to see him. It was always very nice engaging in any kind of a conversation with the physicists. And they were very nice in mentoring me going up mountains. And we had some of the most delicious times doing that. And I think Bil Dunaway especially, helped to change a lot of my attitudes. The mountains do, because I think when you're in the mountains, you begin to question all of your assumptions. And when you're in the mountains, you begin to accept a lot of things that have been questioned. And Bill used to tell me that, and I never fully understood it until much later. Bill was a very special person, but this isn't so much about Bill, except I'm sure that he was one of the people here who welcomed the physicists from day one. I think it was David that came to me about the fund drive that was going on to build the new buildings, and David had so much good common sense in the way he described it. It was something that needed to be done. I mean, it was not something that you had a choice about. And I got very excited about being able to become a part of it. It was Somewhere in here, I guess I ought to say that actually I'm a failed physicist, but I guess some of you realize that very easily. But I entered college to become a physicist, but early on discovered other things in life that interfered with my attention to that, so never did quite make it. So I guess that always has been one of the areas of affection that I had for physics or physicists. One of the things that, of course, you're going through now, Aspen is going through now with some of the development of the stuff for kids here. But ever since high school, that was for some reason very important to me. I think it was a teacher in high school, as those things are, but by college all of his inspiration had somewhat diluted itself, and so I got diverted. But anyhow, when David described what was going on and what was needed here, and by then it was like it was more like he was asking for a barn to participate in a barn raising than it was to make a contribution or anything like that. And so I felt very, very comfortable in participating. At the time, my dad had died in an early age when I was about 31 years old. And I guess I'd always been looking for some way to memorialize him. And I thought because of his assistance in my education, this would be a very appropriate way to do it. I knew he would love this if he'd had a chance to see this happen and to see that I was able to participate. I think sometimes we do a lot of things because we want approbation from our parents. When they're not around, it's still okay. It helps to point you in the right direction. So this is all very good. It came to be called Flug Forum because I was looking for something to memorialize my father. I don't exactly like to have notoriety, but things are printed very small here, and nothing is overstated here, hopefully understated. So it seemed to be okay, and Forum, that's what you're asking, is about Flug Forum. It seemed rather mellifluous. I don't know how else to put it. And it was also very appropriate because I think that's basically what it was, as I understood it, was to be a forum, a place where you move from the small blackboards in the little cubicles into the blackboard into the hall, which was bigger, and then into the blackboard at the corner of the corridor, which was bigger and had seats, and finally, if you had enough ideas or there were enough importance, you made your way to the forum. I guess that's where that came from. And am I pleased? Oh yes, I'm pleased because Harry does just a brilliant job in doing things that are totally lateral thinking, and this was a brilliant example of it. So I think from an aesthetic point of view, it worked. From a functional point of view, it seems to be working. I hope there are no complaints, but one of the truly great joys in being a non-scientific member of the Aspen Center for Physics is that you get to observe physicists outside the realm of their area of expertise. And when it comes to meetings, they are wonderful. They pay meticulous attention to detail. It is something that is so brilliant to see. And unlike what's his name? Lawrence Krauss in his book Fear of Physics or something like that. He says that physicists begin by abstracting the irrelevance in anything they do. And that's how they developed the solar model, by getting rid of 2 billion variables and concentrating on 5 of them. They don't do that very well when it comes to these meetings, I'm sorry to say. But they do it, what they do, they do magnificently, brilliantly, and with good humor, and with occasional fire. And it's very enlightening when you see all of these principles lit by the fire of disagreeing physicists. The other thing that they have a little problem with, I think, and Jeremy, you may be able to confirm this, is dealing with financial statements. They're the most numerate people in the world, except when it comes to dollars and cents. Now, I don't mean by that to say that they can't run their own budgets or anything like that. But it's not an area that interests them except in terms of, did we spend an extra $2 for the tree fund? And they don't worry about the X number of hundreds of thousands of dollars that sit in the bank account. There's a balancing act. It takes a while. When I say they don't worry, they do worry about it, and they worry very much about it, but they worry at a second level, I think. They worry about worrying about it. And this creates a little bit of angst and a little bit of problem for them. But I don't mean in any way to deprecate or depreciate their ability to deal with these situations. They're so much fun for me because that's what I do every day. I think if I were trying to do a different vernacular, I would have a little bit of difficulty. I'd have to create all kinds of assumptions, but these exist. Anyhow, sitting there and being a guy that sometimes they turn to and say, make this report so it's understandable, I enjoy doing that, and I find that they enjoy the fact that I do that, even though they may still not read it, whether it's readable or not, because they have other things on their mind. Is that about right? Okay, but I don't know how to say all of this in a very diplomatic way. Did this come out undiplomatically?
All these people have been saying, I'm not sure I should say this on tape, and we say, that's what we want to hear.
Okay, well, that's good. Except all I can tell you is, bottom line, this is truly one of the great experiences of my life, being associated in some way, shape, or form with these people, and not because of their profession, but because they're just plain nice people to be with and dialogue with. They are the most friendliest people in the world. They really are, just dramatically so. I would say if you took the musicians and you took the physicists, it would be pretty close. But at the moment, I would say are the musicians going to hear this?
We won't.
Okay. I mean, the physicists, I think, have something else in their background that enables them to focus on some of the problems with maybe a little less emotion and a little more reality. And that's a very nice feeling, too. On the other hand, I think if I were talking to musicians, maybe I'd say the other thing.